Gifted right around the corner, many people have wondered where it could fit into the X-Men timeline. With a timeline as fast and loose as Fox's X-Men franchise, it could be anywhere. But that's probably not a good thing. The X-Men film franchise is the longest-running comic series to have never fully rebooted, and because of this, many large plot holes have sprung up throughout the years. And today, we're gonna count down the top 5 biggest plot holes in the X-Men film franchise. Hey, I'm Tim, and this is Hybrid Top 5. Number 5. Darwinism Debunked. In X-Men First Class, we're introduced to Darwin, a mutant with the ability to physically adapt to survive anything. But when the prospective First Class are confronted by Shaw and his team, Shaw finds a workaround. Somehow. For whatever reason, despite us seeing that Darwin's power works instantaneously, his body just can't adapt to Shaw redirecting Alex's attack into him. And it's never explained why. There's nothing in the film about Alex or Shaw's powers canceling Darwin's out, or something about Alex's energy changing in any way that would make it hard to adapt to. It just doesn't work for some reason when he tries to adapt. They clearly wanted to put someone on the original team that they could kill off for dramatic effect, and it couldn't be Beast, Mystique, Xavier, Magneto, or Cyclops' brother. So why would they pick the guy whose power is that he can't be killed? This is the only plot hole on the list to be created within a singular film, and while in the grand scheme of things it doesn't affect much, it does underline the laziness this franchise can be written with. Number 4. A cure for the cured. The main driving force behind The Last Stand was that humans had created a cure for mutants, and no one was more flabbergasted by this than Hank McCoy. You know, the guy who already invented a cure back in 1973? While we see him attempting to create a cure for himself back in the 60s, by the time of the past segments of Days of Future Past, he's successfully been able to remove both his and Xavier's powers. Keep in mind that, at this point, the timeline still supposedly lined up, as he had already created it before Logan came into contact with him. And sure, the results are only temporary and require constant doses to maintain, but he still effectively created a cure, so why is he so blindsided by one existing 30 years later? And this isn't the only time that an entire premise of one of the films is undercut by misunderstanding one of the major characters. But this one was retroactive, so it's not quite as bad. The next one, however, number 3. We need Mystique. In Days of Future Past, we see the entire main timeline up to this point ended up in an apocalyptic future where the Sentinels have all but wiped out much of the population. They accomplished this by gaining the ability to change and alter their powers to counter anything used against them, which they received from Mystique. The problem? Mystique's powers don't work that way. She can only take the physical appearance of people, she can't mimic their powers. We saw this all the way back in the first movie when Wolverine cut clean through her claws when she turned into him cause she couldn't mimic his adamantium skeleton or his healing factor. So the entire end of the world scenario is predicated on the Sentinels gaining a power from a person who didn't even have that power in the first place. And it's clear that this was done to give Jennifer Lawrence a more significant role in the series due to her star rising at the time. But like Beast's cure, it undercuts a huge driving force of the film. Man, if only they had a character introduced in the previous film who did have the power the Sentinel would need to adapt to anything. Sorry, Armando. Number 2. Charles and Eriks' past. Throughout the original trilogy, we're told many things about the Professor and Magneto's backstory that builds a strong bond between them. The only problem? Apparently none of it was true. In the original films, it stated that they met when they were 17, but when we see them meet, they're in their 20s or 30s. They also say Erik helped build Cerebro, except he didn't. At all. Charles didn't even invent it, he was created by the US government. And Erik couldn't have even built the one that was in the mansion because they weren't on good terms at the time it would have been built. We also see them working together in 1986 to recruit Jean Grey, which is surprising on Erik's end since in both timelines he was accused of killing JFK. I don't think you get time off for good behavior for that one. So why is a presidential assassin allowed to help run a school? And he's apparently doing it quite publicly. It's not even that the connection between the two in the prequel films is bad, but basically every decision made goes against everything we knew about the two previously. Number 1. What's my age again? Fox has always played fast and loose with the X-Men timeline, with loose being the operative term here, and like the previous entry, most of this was created with the prequel films. Because ever since the prequel films started, characters began aging in bizarre ways, if they even aged at all. First of all, despite a decade passing between each of the prequel films, not only do the characters barely age physically, they don't even appear to be gaining age chronologically. This is emphasized with Havoc and Apocalypse, where he's still the teenage Scott's older brother despite at this point supposedly being old enough to be his dad. Scott even says that Alex was going to be the one to make something of his life, but even if we lowballed and said Alex was a teen in first class, he would have been in his late 30s when he died. It might be a bit too late for that, Scott. Then we have characters whose ages in the prequel timeline just don't match the original. Scott is somehow roughly the same age in 1983 that he originally was in 1979, and Jean is now in her teens in 1983 despite originally being around 10 in 1986. And you can't blame this age discrepancy on Logan going back to the past because both would have already been born by the time he got there. And Days of Future Past does confirm that both Last Stand and Origins are canon to the original timeline. It's even worse with Angel, who's now roughly 20 years older than he used to be. How did Logan going back to the past even create a new timeline? Apparently, the past X-Men are unstuck in time. The X-Men film franchise has lasted for a very long time and continues to move forward without any signs of stopping or fully rebooting. But maybe they should, since these problems are likely going to get worse before they get better. And these are only a few examples. So let's hear from you guys. What other plot holes do you find of note in the X-Men films? Well, as always, let us know down in the comments, and until next time, I've been Tim, and this is Hybrid Top 5. Check out our Facebook and Twitter for our latest updates, our website for our latest articles and editorials, and donate to our Patreon if you'd like to see our content get better.